Some countries in the world have lived through moments in history when they suddenly seem to become prosperous almost overnight. Wealth, power, and economic growth turned them into places everyone around the world talked about. But unfortunately, these countries that rose so quickly collapsed just as fast. These cases prove how fragile economies are and how wealth is often not permanent. Now let's look at the stories of 5 countries that experienced a rapid rise but couldn't maintain it for long. First example, Spain. In the 16th century, huge amounts of gold and silver were brought to Spain from South America. The wealth was so overwhelming that the country suddenly became the most dominant state in Europe. But the precious metals coming from the mines were so abundant that, as they became widespread, money began to lose value. Prices rose, inflation increased, and since Spain couldn't manage this wealth, it gradually went into decline. So sometimes, even too much gold can destroy a country from within instead of making it richer. Another example, Japan. In the 1980s, the Japanese economy grew so rapidly that the country seemed to be experiencing an economic miracle. Some plots of land in Tokyo were even valued higher than the entire United States. Everyone thought Japan would become the world's future leader. But this growth had actually turned into a massive financial bubble. Prices had completely broken away from reality. When the bubble burst, Japan was dragged into a long period of crisis, and the country struggled to recover for decades. A similar story happened in Iceland. Despite being a small state, in the mid-2000s they created massive financial structures and tried to become a major financial center. The banks grew rapidly, and from the outside the country looked as if it was truly getting richer. But almost all of this growth was unsound. The banks had taken extremely risky positions. During the 2008 crisis, this structure collapsed, and Iceland came almost to the point of total bankruptcy. Another example, Venezuela. Thanks to its oil reserves, the country once appeared to be one of the richest places in the world. Over time, the state became excessively dependent on oil revenues, but the rest of the economy was never strengthened. When oil prices fell, the entire system collapsed at once. The country was hit by uncontrollable inflation, the currency lost almost all of its value, and millions of people fell into severe financial hardship. Final example, Argentina. At the beginning of the 20th century, Argentina was one of the richest countries in the world in terms of income per capita. Thanks to agricultural revenues and foreign investment, the country was enjoying a bright era. But poor economic decisions, frequent changes in government, and unstable policies dragged Argentina from wealth into poverty over time. Even today, the country still hasn't escaped economic turmoil. What all these countries experienced is actually very similar. When wealth arrives too quickly, most nations don't question whether it is sustainable. Short-term gains hide long-term risks. As income rises, countries start to feel more secure. But if the economic foundation isn't healthy, even a small shock can bring down the entire system. Real strength comes not from sudden rises, but from stable, balanced, and well-rooted development. All these stories show us the following. Getting rich quickly is sometimes not an advantage. On the contrary, it can be the first step toward a major danger. These historical examples clearly prove how difficult it is to preserve economic success.